Hello, Namaste. Welcome to Dev's Hammer Show. This is the flagship English talk show of Indigenous television and ITV Nepal. In this program, I try to bring the voices, struggles, experiences, success, and other lesson learned of Indigenous peoples from across the globe. I try to connect one another. In order to this, I sometimes conduct face-to-face interview. Sometimes I conduct online video conferences. In these episodes, I'm going to discuss about the recent military coup in Myanmar, and basically its impact on the public in general, and more importantly, the impacts of military coup on indigenous populations in particular. Myanmar lies in Southeast Asia, which neighbors Laos, Thailand, Bangladesh, China, and India. And the Myanmar, which previously known as Burma, in 1989, the ruling military changed the name from Burma to Myanmar. And Myanmar, which has a population of about 54 million, which comprises of more than 100 different ethnic groups. And Myanmar government basically has recognized 7 ethnic groups as indigenous peoples, and but defines those indigenous peoples as ethnic nationalities. Those 7 ethnic nationalities are known as Shan, Karen, Rakhine, Karenni, Chin, Kachin, and Mon. And there are many ethnic groups who claim to be indigenous. Ever since the Myanmar got independence from UK in 1948, Myanmar is going through a civil war. And Myanmar's civil war is considered to be one of the world's longest ongoing civil war, which has a history of over 7 decades. Several ethnic groups are basically fighting against the military for self-determinations, autonomy, and independence. Recently, on the 1st February 2021, that military that ruled Myanmar for over 5 decades, over 50 years, seized power again in a coup and declared a state of emergency for about a year. Military also detained the top leaders and politicians, including Aung San Suu Kyi and the President Win Mint and other senior figures. In this context, I have invited my colleagues, my friend Mae Thin Yuman, a human rights activist. Currently, she's involved as program director of Chin human rights organizations, in order to talk how this military move or military coup has impacted on indigenous peoples, in particular in Myanmar. Hello, Mathin. First of all, welcome to the show, and could you please introduce yourself a bit so that my viewers are able to know you and about your community?
I am Maithin Yutmon. I'm working for a Chin Human Rights Organization as a program director for the Indigenous Peoples Development Program. I am from a Chin community, indigenous community from the northwestern part of Myanmar. And my homeland is bordering with Mizoram in India and Chittagong Hill Tracts in Bangladesh.
One of the issues that I want to talk to you today is recent political uprising, mainly the military coup, which is taking place in Myanmar, especially after February 1st, 2021. I want to know what is your observation in regards to this political uprising, or let's say the military coup.
Starting on February 1st, the military announced that they have taken the country. So we underwent the military coup on the 1st of February. And the main accusation made by the military was election fraud of the ruling party, the National League for Democracy. And they claimed, the military claimed that more than 1.1 million votes have been fraud, possible fraud in the voter list. So with that accusation, the military took power from the ruling party. That was the day when that was the day when the parliament session of the newly elected people, the newly elected people was called on. It was supposed to happen on the same day, but at 9 a.m. It was supposed to start at 9 a.m., but the coup happened around 4 a.m. in the morning, the same day. Yes.
The situation now in Nepal is, though slightly different, but look similar, as there is also a constitutional coup. Not a military, but constitutional coup. And numerous of movement is being undertaken afterward, even in Nepal, like in Myanmar. In this context, I can realize the military coup, and it has impacted a lot on the lives of general public. And if you have to lay out basically the impacts, what impact do you see that military coup has resulted on indigenous populations, spatially?
Myanmar, the indigenous peoples, actually, the context is a little bit different for indigenous peoples when it comes to the military. Because you are, I'm sure you are aware that Myanmar is the country with the longest civil war. And that civil war has been taking place only in ethnic areas, which are the homeland to many indigenous peoples, communities. And so and many indigenous peoples, they are even saying that this doesn't make a difference that much to many indigenous communities, the military coup. But then the thing is, we have been enjoying democracy for the past 10 years. So now, and we have also elected people to the and we have elected people and sent our representatives to the parliament for the past 10 years. So now that the coup happened, so it means that our representation to the parliament has been undermined. No, has been removed, totally removed, and we are already seeing very much top-down approach in in selecting and appointing people to different administration councils at different levels, like township, district, state, and regional level. So we are seeing all these signs of dictatorship at different levels. So for indigenous peoples, I would say the past 5 years have been a very big struggle. And we have been struggling a lot for the official recognition of our customary land. And the national land law, the drafting process of national land law was initiated about 2 years ago. So that is we expected a lot to achieve from the process, but now that the military coup took place, and all these different legislation process, legislating laws that would respect and recognize the rights of indigenous peoples, no more. So that is a huge impact. Even though many indigenous peoples parties didn't win in the previous election that much, but still it has a big impact. And I would like to refer to some of the human rights reports from indigenous communities in the past few decades. military, the term military itself, it comes a lot with fear. It comes a lot with like the sense of insecurity for many indigenous peoples, because many human rights reports revealed a lot the human rights violations committed by the military regime. So the right to religious freedom, and many of the indigenous communities, I would say that there is almost no indigenous community who didn't go through this forced labor and forced confiscation of all these lands, and yeah, like porter. So yeah, a lot, and we are seeing a few signs of these human rights violations already within the past 10 days in many indigenous communities. So we are seeing that more are coming. Yeah.
If I understood correctly, Metin, Myanmar government doesn't recognize indigenous peoples as such, but it calls or it defines indigenous peoples as ethnic nationalities. Could you tell us a bit about indigenous peoples and their struggles in Myanmar?
I'm sure you are aware of the history of Myanmar and the different ethnic nationalities coming together starting in 1947. Before that, indigenous peoples had their own self-administered states, self-administered, how should I say, not union, but federated states in their respective regions. So only in 1947, when the British was ready to give independence to Myanmar, to these different geographical areas that it occupied for, that they occupied for almost more than a century. Then the Chan, Kachin, Chin, and the proper Burma and Karenni, they all came together. They all agreed to come together in 1947 to form a country. So, like historically, these indigenous communities are the ones who were independent, who were self-reliant, and who were like more like federated states, which had their own administration, their own governance systems. So but after independence, I would say that after a decade of, not even before a decade of independence, that the civil war began, because the majority people didn't recognize the religion of other ethnic nationalities. That's when the civil war started. So all these throughout all these decades that indigenous peoples have been going through different struggles to and different fights to achieve their self-determination, um, which is why many ethnic nationalities are also joining the peace dialogues, the peace negotiation process, by signing the nationwide ceasefire agreement. Yeah, that historically that is the thing. And on the other side, these different communities, without because the military has been promoting it has been practicing divide and rule among different ethnic nationalities. So that has caused different barriers for indigenous peoples to really come together and join the fight together. So in terms of land, in terms of territories, in terms of self-determination, there are all the fights, all the different sorts of fights and struggles that indigenous peoples have been facing. And also now under this 2008 constitution, indigenous peoples or ethnic nationalities are not really enjoying self-determination, equality. So the things that we are demanding during this anti-military coup movement goes beyond like returning back to the democracy, but also it goes to abolishing the existing constitution, because it can always allow military coup at any time, and also it undermines the democracy, because 25% of the parliament is taken up by the military. So and also how should I say, the composition of states and regions, and the way we send representatives to the parliament, to the union level and at the regional level, are not really how should I say, are not really guaranteeing the federal democratic union that we are envisioning as indigenous peoples and ethnic nationalities.
Meithin, you have clearly elaborated the long civil war in Myanmar. When it comes to the war or civil war, women are regarded as one of the most vulnerable groups or sections of society. I also can sense this, as we also had 10 years long civil war in Nepal. Its impact on general public. More importantly, the impact of civil war on women here in Nepal as well. If you have to categorize some possible, and let's say the perhaps already impacted by the recent military coup as well, could you tell us a bit your views, what impacts have been faced, especially by women in general, and indigenous women in particular in Myanmar, especially after this military coup?
So with the coup, because it's been only 10 days, the coup, the period, but I think it's important for us to relate back to the military period, to the military, when we had the military regime like a few decades ago. Because if you look at all these human rights reports from ethnic, the indigenous peoples communities, you would see all these rape cases, sexual violence that indigenous women were facing from the military personnel, and like arbitrary detentions and extrajudicial killings, and all these, how should I say, all these hardships that come together with the dictatorship and the militarization in the areas, ethnic areas. We saw all those different sorts. And right now, it's been 10 days, but you would see that all these, all the general public joining the anti-coup movement, also because they relate their experience from the past to this coup. And many of them leading these protests, anti-coup protests, are women. This is also reflecting the fact that women are the most insecure, because they are the ones who are doing all these, going into the forest, picking all these vegetables and food, and they are the ones who go into the forest, into the farms, to do all these farming related activities. And when they are alone, they were never secure during the military regime. So these are the big impacts. And with the coup, things that might come will be like forced relocation for big projects. Maybe like we saw a lot of Chinese led development projects, including dams and these expansion of how should I say, these large scale farms, and all these industrializations, Chinese backed up industry. So all these bring all the different sorts of problems for local communities, indigenous women. So yeah, those are the things that we have seen so far. So we are just relating back to the previous experience from the military regime.
Now, the general public as well as indigenous peoples and all civilians are taking to the streets. I want to know some of the demands made by general public and especially by indigenous communities there, if there are any differences.
So the demands in indigenous communities are a little bit different from the major cities. I mean, they join the demands from major cities, which include to release the arrested leaders, political leaders, and to resume the parliament session, which was supposed to take place on February 1st, and then to accept the election results from the previous election. Those are the demands mainly made in major cities by the general public. But in indigenous communities, I would say that there are the two main extra demands. The first additional demand is to abolish the existing 2008 constitution, which is not really democratic in terms of values and standards. And the other one is to form a federal democratic union where all the ethnic nationalities have the right to self-determination and right to equality, non-discrimination. So these are the two major additional demands that we are seeing in indigenous areas across the country. And even those indigenous youths and indigenous communities in major cities, they are making those extra demands in their protests.
The military has called year-long state of emergency in Myanmar, according to the media reports now, and all the civilians, as far as I understood, are taking to the street. What do you see the way out, or let's say, what solutions do you see in relation to this movement?
So the immediate step that we need to achieve is for the military to hand over back the power to the ruling government, the elected people. For that, the whole country, we are seeing the first solution would be, the first way would be for civil servants, for public civil servants to really join the civil disobedience movement that the whole country has initiated. Because we need to stop the whole mechanism from operating. So the first one would be for civil servants, at least 80% to join the civil disobedience movement, which we are seeing about 40 to 50% have joined already. So, and the first one would be for them to return the power back to the people. And then, after that, then the second step would be to abolish the existing constitution, which can allow. And then the third one will be to really structure, to draw the new constitution with this federal democratic standard. Yes. So, but for that to really happen, we might also need a third party to mediate between the military and then the Union Election Commission results, because the Union Election Commission is also the main actor that the military is accusing. So I believe that we do need intervention from some respectful religious leaders and it might be international community, but strong, powerful, and trusted international community. We need intervention from those parties for that to really happen.
The solutions to every problem at home or at a country is the family members or the citizens of that particular country. However, at times, many problems at a country is seen solved also by support from the outsiders too. In this context, what sort of support can international communities exert to help recent problems in Myanmar? Meaning, how we as an international community can be of your help at this critical time.
So for the international community, including the UN, what we really need is to the UN and those countries with influence, we need them to exert all diplomatic and economic pressures on the Tamaro, on the military, to reverse it back, the trend back to the to the democratic transition. Because there are a number of military-led corporates and businesses which will be the main interest for them to really maintain. So that would be the economic pressures. We do need economic pressures and diplomatic pressures to be made. And the other thing that we will need is, I'm not very sure how exactly we can do that, but we will need R2P to intervene from the UN. That we did see a few statements by big, quite influential countries, and also from the UN Security Council. And we are hearing that there will be the Human Rights Council special session on Myanmar very soon. So we need all these different international communities to give as much pressure as they can, including the economic targeted sanctions towards the military-related businesses. And we really need China not to support the military on its ongoing activities. That would be the main. And please help us, the world, know more about what is really happening inside the country, because we heard that the foreign ministry is also taken up by some very military people and sending out messages to different foreign missions from different countries. So we do need the real message to spread out among the different international communities.
Though I wanted to talk a lot, Meithin, we are almost at the end of the show. Thus, I don't want to ask you further questions, but I would like to request you to say anything that you want to emphasize on any issues that I have not asked you, but you want to say as a final words, Meithin.
So we are doing our best, the citizens, even the general public, and like all the different walks of life. We are trying our best to participate in this anti-coup movement and using all the means that the people can. So please be with us, and please send your support. Okay, sorry, can I repeat the previous question? Okay. Like I mentioned, okay, I will start for the previous question. For international communities, including the UN, what we really need is to exert all the diplomatic and economic pressures on the military, because the biggest benefit for them is their businesses, to maintain their businesses. So the general public is also trying their best, our best, to stop all these businesses and the government operation. So like I mentioned, about 40 to 50% of the civil servants have already joined the civil disobedience movement. And in order to really maintain that movement until the military gives back the power, we might need a lot of humanitarian assistance in order to support these civil servants who participate in the anti-coup movement, because they stopped working already and they have their families, they themselves, and we need a number of safety measures taken for them. So there will be a number of supports that can be done from our friends from the international communities. And we are also hearing that there is going to be a special session on Human Rights Council very soon on Myanmar. We expect all these countries with influence to exert as much power as they can to support the people in Myanmar who are trying their best to remove the military. So thank you so much. And we are receiving all your concerns, your care, and your support from people from outside the country, brothers, sisters, and friends. So we will need your continued support. Please remember us in your prayers and also help us spread our words to the world, and help us. Please stand with us and please show us your support in any way that you can. We will really appreciate it, and the whole country needs your support.
Thank you so much, Meithin Yumon, for your time and all the thoughts that you shared with us about the recent military coup and its impact on general public in general and on indigenous populations in particular.
Thank you very much.
We are at the end of the show. Today I had discussed mainly the military coup and its impact on the indigenous populations in Myanmar. And next week I will come up with new issues and new guests to discuss on another topic. If you have any questions, queries, or feedbacks regarding this program, you can reach me at indigenous television@gmail.com. Keep watching Indigenous Television and ITV Nepal. Bye-bye. Namaste.